Hello and welcome. This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado. We're going to talk about today in this comment the issue of the ranchers and their plight with the government. We're going to use as a reference our resource and Telegraph. .uk, British paper, to talk about us Americans here, the colonists, what they're up to these days. And of course, this should ring a vibe, or at least some distant memories, if you will, of American colonists in an uproar with the authorities. Basically, we're going to discuss this with some interesting article. It's a very it gives us some information. They have also a video here, so you can come over to the Telegraph and look at that. But what we're going to talk about is what seems to be a disconcerting issue with their plight in their statements that they feel that they feel oppressed by the government. And this is again this is a feeling that is growing. It's been simmering for quite some time, and there's obviously quite a lot of disappointments, a lot of lack now of confidence in the authorities. And so we're going talking about the head on down. So we're talking about the President of the United States on down, not having an administration that people can respect. There's a lot of disrespect, and we are not going to entertain at all this race thing, because I believe with all my understanding and on my heart that it's really not an issue of race. I mean, if you know that this race issue exists, then work knowing that, and do things, and make policy, and make the government work in such a way to avoid that relation, and avoid triggering that attitude and that excuse, really, for your enemies to use against any of your policies. So this is something that's really is a responsibility of the ones in authority and power to make that adjustment. It's something that can be done. The government has resources, vast resources, to compensate for that. And I don't think that's being properly handled. I think the race issue has been mishandled and abused. And when you abuse the race issue, then that will come back to haunt you. And that's what's happening, where the lack of confidence because of the other things that have gone on, and then the inappropriate use of the race issue, people just don't want to hear about that. And in an instant, they're going to opine that this government is just hiding behind a race issue and not dealing with issues. There's too many of them. There's just too many to overlook. And this is disheartening to me because, hey, this is my country. I love it. I love the opportunity that the country offers people. I appreciate our military and what they have afforded us. They brought it with blood and tears and loss of limb. I don't put that lightly. I don't take it lightly at any cost. Listen, this is something that it's really, I really feel that people just need to weigh the cost of freedom, and what it has cost people to be free. so that you guys can fool around and hang out and do whatever you want to do, which in other countries would not be tolerated, simply. And for us to go around, even in our freedom of speech, to go around trashing on what others died for, I think even with freedom of speech, there's freedom of speech, but it's not, there's sensibilities to be had. And I don't think freedom of speech allows us freedom to be stupid. I mean, certainly you have a right to be stupid, but freedom to be stupid, where and that stupidity encroaches on the sensibilities of others. I think that's not right. So I think that we're getting to a point where the lack of sensibility, the lack of caring, the lack of understanding one another is going to reach a point in this country that we're going to have a major a meltdown. We can see already with the cattle ranchers, they're ready. I mean, they are ready to take this to the head. They're ready to take arms against the government that's out there in the ranch land. And what we just saw that just happened now recently with this issue, with this situation out there in the Clive and Bundy's cattle issue, I think this is just going to trigger that sentiment to really to give force, give credence, and give energy to that movement and that thinking process that's really putting our government in danger and our country and our freedoms, really, because obviously the government will fight back in its um, in its in its self preservation uh, or self preserving mentality, which it has to do. It has the right to do that, and then it will cause us to lose our freedoms. This is a terrible situation, and I think it's fostered by a lack of care in the authorities in the government, and I think also the people, the electorate, has to take care now. I think the next few elections are very, very important. And I think the voting public, my fellow Americans, you need to take consideration into consideration and be careful in your selecting of our leaders, because this is going to matter. Things are going to matter. Now, I'm going to tell you something that when we are going to the choose who is going to lead our country, you need, and those of you who are thinking of running and who are planning to run, I'm going to tell you right now that if you're not going back to the basics and to the core values of what American or America is, what being an American means, I think that then you are going to be a catalyst for the destruction of this country as we know it. It's already slipping and sliding away from the founding fathers' envisionment and dreams and hopes. And right now, out of boredom, out of political self-righteousness and self-interest, whatever it could be, we're selling that dream down the drain. And the electorate, you, my fellow Americans, let us choose leaders who recognize what it is to be an American, who understand what America was founded on, why it was founded on, and why we must preserve those truths and those values. Okay? So I think we need to get back there. Things have gone on, errors have been made, mistakes have been made, but we cannot throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's do what's right. Let's listen to our countrymen Let's understand that, and the government, the leaders should be hearing and seeing what is going on here. This should not be happening in the United States of America. This is an embarrassment. This is not a developed democracy. It's not the way things should be done. This shows you there's a problem here. There's a problem here, and it has to be mitigated and dealt with before we end up like those other countries out there that are really they're falling apart at the seams. And if you don't want to see that happening here in the United States, we first of all, the voting public, my fellow American, you have to vote right. Don't vote for silliness. Don't vote just because you want to see this or want to see that type of person or that race, or it's all silliness. We are here. The other countries, they don't have this issue. And while we're here trying to discover our sexuality and whatever political standpoint we have, they're out there arming themselves and getting ready to take us over. Okay, so you guys, you think you're winning you may win the battle, but you're gonna lose the war, because when they come and take over, those rights that you are trying to fight for now, they're gone. You will forfeit. What do you want? You want this right? Or you want to maintain the rights of an American, and for there to be in America to have your right, and because if we lose the country, you lose your rights. All of that you're working for would have been lost. So I really think people need to start thinking. You guys are getting too crazy with power and with riding the wave. It's just a wave. And you know what happens at the end of the wave, right? So this is a great concern, and I feel that I'm glad that the Bureau of Land Management, I believe it is, yes, uh, decided to back off and deal with things in the courts. But this is just a wake up call that something has to be fixed. There's something wrong here. The needs that the people have, and that should be primordial. That should be our primary focus. The needs that they have are not being dealt with. They're not being satisfied. Okay, and that has nothing to directly to do with me. It's indirect, of course, beef and all that, food and whatnot, milk. But if I don't take care of that, if I don't worry about their needs being met, which I should be, then who's going to care about my needs? And for the things that I under the American flag, that were taught to me were mine, and were rights that pertain to me. So we all have to band together with them to defend defend the right that the people need to be heard. This government is for the people. It's not for its own self. It's for the people. And so the people have to be heard. They have to be helped no matter what they believe in. They could be people who don't like Spanish people. They may not even care to see somebody like me walking around their part of town. That has nothing to do with the fact that they're American and I am American too, like it or not. But their needs need to be heard and addressed, and my needs have to be heard and addressed. And if I don't defend their needs being heard and addressed, then who's going to defend mine? Why should you have your own? So I think this is an outrage that this thing is going on, and that there's these issues going on that are not being addressed appropriately. I don't believe they're being addressed appropriately. Doesn't matter that you're taking it to court. It's not appropriate. So the whole thing, what they're saying is that this is not right. Something here is not right. Something's not working right. And so I think this whole issue needs to be revisited. Okay, the whole thing. And the next leaders of this country should be leaders that are able to address this situation and look at it not from the top to the bottom, but from the bottom. upward, because this country is here to ensure our liberties and our life and our pursuit of happiness. And once political leaders forget that, this country's done. So vote American. God bless you. Take care.